Anyway, welcome to all of you. I think this must be the largest number of people we've ever welcomed onto a Zoom meeting, but it's marvelous to see you all and hear those different voices, many of whom we'll, of course, recognize straight away. I suppose I want to start by saying that there are some things that you really wish might happen during your time as master. And there are just one or two things you really hope won't happen while you're doing this particular job. I suppose I could probably have done without the pandemic, but then again, we all could. But more than anything, perhaps, is the thought of actually having the task of saying farewell to William, because he has been such an extraordinary figure in the life of the company for so long. And for many of us, he's been the person who's trained us, as it were, as we've come into the company or become members of the court and so on. So what are my images, really? I suppose the first image is a sound image, the sound of Blakey's from about 100 paces on the stone floor of St. Paul's Cathedral at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, that might just be an eccentric clergyman's take on the whole thing, but that sense of daily devotion is one hidden but essential part of William's remarkably multifaceted personality. My other image, which William may not even remember, is of him coming up the stair, coming up in the lift to, I think, the 11th floor of the Pearson building in the Strand with his fold-up Brompton bicycle to give me some briefing on what it meant to become a court member. So there you are. That's another sort of rather eccentric picture. We have been remarkably privileged to have someone of William's distinction as our clerk. A rapid canter through his career. William would appreciate that country image, the canter, I think. That should be enough. Coming from a distinguished Oxfordshire family, William was justly proud to have been elected High Sheriff and then a Deputy Lieutenant. And alongside all this, he has a most outstanding educational pedigree, which you can hardly match. The Dragon School in Oxford, Marlborough College, great St Merton College, Oxford, one of the most brilliant of the Oxford colleges, and then to the 13th, 18th Royal Hussars, and later to Cranfield School of Management. An amazing background. Thereafter, of course, as many of you will know, William ran the Alden Press with its subsidiaries remarkably successfully and continuously engaging with the most up-to-date developments in printing and publishing. And the press had started life, of course, in the early 19th century, printing anti-slavery material. It would feel at home at the moment, of course. After the sale of the press, previous experience in industry and his knowledge and love of the company and his charismatic personality made him unique in the succession of clerks over the centuries. Alongside William's intellectual substance, we've benefited from his exceptional style. Substance without style often descends into tedium. Style without content, of course, speaks for itself. In almost everything, William breathes a most attractive persona. Splendid waistcoat, William. Oh, glad you like it. Bought it in Vienna. And frequently clad in the best cut of suits, he always uses the same tailor in Chelsea. Need a book? Hatchard's is the only place really in London to go and buy one. And then, of course, Christmas trinkets, it's off to Fortnum's. Hat, trench coat, dazzling shirt and tie, and then, of course, those socks. All this captures something of William's sartorial business attire. But for all the flamboyance, there remains a proper rigour when it comes to formal occasions. If it says on the aid memoir, black tie, then that's what it means, not a red polka dot number that promises to spin round like a windmill at the press of a button. Of course, this translated itself into an equal rigour when preparing both for formal dinners and indeed for meetings of the court. You know that William will get it right, both in terms of protocol. Throughout my year, there's not been a single occasion when I've telephoned him, but he will answer, "Oh, hello, master," and then also with the delightful traditions associated with the court, making people free, clothings, indeed with any ceremonial, you could guarantee that William would get it right and rehearse where necessary to make sure it really was right. If there was no tradition relating to a certain occasion, then William, of course, would invent and institute one which has been used since time immemorial. Perhaps most significant of all, however, in a company with countless city properties and without countless city properties, William's business acumen has been crucial. Stationers depends on its hall for its flourishing, and the recent determination to move ahead with hall development is an eloquent side of this. William has been behind this process throughout, and when there have been difficulties and disagreements, as there were bound to be, his perspicacity and understanding of people and personalities has been essential. The income derived from hall bookings and the ever-increasing variety in hall usage has developed in leaps and bounds during his 11 years at the helm. Masters may think, of course, that they run the show, but in a polity where the figurehead changes annually, it is the clerk in any well-run livery household who holds the ring. Having said that, the clerk knows too that he is ultimately the chief civil servant. This means capturing the vision of a succession of masters and indeed an ever-changing court with a remarkable treasury of talent and experience, and harnessing energies, imagination, and élan to the very utmost. At the heart here are William's personal gifts with people, his warmth, his unerring concern to show gratitude, and his compassion have all made the worshipful company of stationers and newspaper makers an amazing fellowship and enormous fun. You only need to ask our permanent staff about this, and their loyalty says it all. Throughout the City of London, William is one of those figures whom everyone knows and whose personal gifts place him in a class of his own. So we salute him as he moved back to his beloved Oxford, where so much of his early life was fashioned, and where he will take more time to engage in those country pursuits he loves so much. Plenty more cantering to come. William, thank you for everything. And we can all clap, even if we're muted. Now, what I want to do now is to make just a few announcements about presentations. There'll only be one presentation this evening, but there are 4 gifts which await William. First of all, as ever, William, there's been a great collection, and at some point, a cheque will come your way from the company. And that's been contributed by everyone, every member virtually involved in the company. And then secondly, there will be a portrait, which I think William knows about, has just fixed up the first sitting. And that has been made possible through the generosity of the past masters who've served in William's time. And I've chucked it a bit myself because I'll be a past master myself soon. So that's a second gift. The third gift is that William will receive a lifelong membership of the livery without fine or without porterage, as a sign of our gratitude for all he has given. And fourthly, and finally, I'm going to give you this gift, William. I hope it comes through properly. I mean, there it is. Oh, look at that. It's amazing. How it's cool.
A miracle, master. Right.
We'll let you open it.
I open this now, master?
Open it now. Please do open it now, yes. And have a look and see what it is, because I want to then say something about it before you speak.
Beautifully wrapped. And now I'm going to need maybe, and as always, my wife knows what to do.
So it's just that.
So it's got a very helpful little note, I guess, from Matt. I guess that's Matt Stockwell, is it?
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
exactly.
On the Queen's Bindery. Ah, what a wonderful thing. Now, he told me that it's quite snug, so I need to.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah, there we go. Well, what an amazing thing. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, that is a magnificent book. And the text, I'm afraid, doesn't match the quality of the binding or indeed the printing, but and the design. But
Let me say a bit, William, because
Yeah.
people won't know. This is a most marvelously bound copy of William's Graces, which you'll all know have been just remarkable over these years. And you'll be glad to know that there will be copies available for you to buy. But William's is actually, I think, finished with blue leather, and the end pages have been specially designed in the stationer's colours. And what I wanted to say, William, before you speak, is that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Helen and the team who helped put this together, Helen Esmond. It is a remarkable piece of work. But of course, at the heart of the work, for all your denials, the most important thing of all is those graces. So over to you now.
well, Master, it's very, very hard to follow your fulsome words. And but let me start off by saying how incredibly fortunate I feel I've been to have served as clerk to the Stationers' Company over the past 11 years. I'll always be grateful that when times were difficult back in 2010, the Stationers extended a helping hand to me. And I've rarely tried, and I hope perhaps I've succeeded a bit, at least in part, of returning that favour. I've had so many happy times over the past 11 years. And I ought to really thank the 11 masters under whom, well, actually, I think it's 12 masters under whom I have served over those years. I thank them and also apologise to them for the many times when I somehow messed up exactly where it was we were meant to be. And I think I can't remember if it was you, Christopher, but I sent at least one master to completely the wrong church for a church service. So thank you very much, masters, past masters, for your patience with me and putting up with me as your clerk. And also I'd like to thank all of the members of the Stationers' Company who've become real friends to me over the past 11 years. And of course, I've been a stationer for 35 years or so, and my father was a very proud stationer. But it's only really when you serve as clerk that you get to know members as well as I have got to know all of you over those years. And it has been a pure joy for me. So thank you very much for your friendship, for your support, and again, for your patience with me. It has really made the job enormously enjoyable. Of course, there have been some tough times. Indeed, I'd only been in the job for just a few months when Sally and I went to Garsington Opera one evening. And I remember saying to her as we were driving back down to Oxford from London, what a joy it was to finally be in a job where I didn't need my mobile phone with me and that I could relax and feel that I didn't need to be on the other end of a phone. Little did I know that when we got back to Stationers' Hall late that evening, there were an enormous number of blue flashing lights in the courtyard, and the hall had bloody nearly burnt down. Ron came out of the front door, his face blackened with soot, saying, "Well, where the hell have you been, Mr. Clark?" But luckily we were able to rebuild the burnt screen and get the hall back up and running in remarkably quick time. And but it was truly a baptism of fire, and it's been all uphill or downhill. It's all downhill since then. So I have very many happy memories. As the Masters described me as an Oxford yokel, I don't mind saying that I knew absolutely nothing about the City of London. And I'm sure that Vincent, there'll be plenty of people in the City of London who think that I still know absolutely nothing about it. But I have tried really hard over the last 11 years to become a Londoner. And that is quite a hard thing for an Oxford chap to say. But what a joy it has been to finish off my career in this wonderful job. And by the way, I leave in the knowledge that I'm handing over to a much stronger successor in Giles. And I know that he's going to do a fantastic job. And perhaps that's the way I should end this evening, by saying that what I have learned over the last 11 years is that it's really important for livery companies to look forwards, not backwards. And we at the stationers have got so much to look forward to, as long as we remain confident and understand all of the strengths that we have, because this company has a great future under a great new clerk in Giles. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the company develop, especially when the hall reopens, of course. So, Master, thank you very much indeed for these wonderful gifts. It's a great honor, beyond my greatest expectations, and I look forward to plowing through my graces. I'm slightly embarrassed because I haven't actually looked at them, but when I consider how many of them repeated what I'd said at previous events, God knows what the book's going to read like. But anyway, thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you all.
Woohoo!
William, thank you so much for those words. And I'd forgotten that the famous fire happened quite so early in your time. I think it was the Musicians Company who were in the hall that night. So every time I meet a friend of mine who's a member of the Musicians Company, I remind them they tried to burn the hall down. But there we are. Absolutely marvellous. And I hope you'll enjoy reading through your graces and remembering the events that they often sort of linked with. Both the stationers events, but also the world events. No one could ever say that we were parochial when you were in charge, as it were. You always reminded us of what was going on. So thank you so much. And there'll be lots of other occasions to say some of these things again to William. I know that he's going to meet with a small company of people at Stationers Hall in June, when we can actually meet in person. And then I know that in the autumn, we hope very much that there will be a bigger event to which can be invited his fellow clerks across the City of London. And that picks up one of the themes of what William had to say. So thank you again. And thank you all of you for your contribution to this. I think now we're going to go into breakout groups. Is that correct, Giles?
Yes, Master, if I may. So first of all, I apologise to those who were left in the waiting room. Tim, you were quite right. There was a limit on the Zoom, which took us a while to get rid of, but we've now got rid of it, and everyone is now in. Apologies to those who are waiting. You will now receive an invitation to join a room. Do please click it, and you'll meet a surprise group of people, and then we'll call you back in about 15 minutes, where we'll give you an update on the hall development through photographs and slideshows. So we'll start we'll start here. The story so far. So I have given, I think this might be the third or fourth presentation we've done. At the Cakes and Ale, I gave an update. So a lot of these slides you may have seen before, but we'll whiz through that. I'll take you through where we are at the moment and also have a sneaky peek into what the finishes team have been doing with the hall and what the hall may look like in the inside of the hall once it's all been decided. As this is a familiar picture to us all, the hall from the garden. This is what is now known as the link building, which links the courtroom to the hall. And this is where the architect's PBA identified as the most ideal place in order to put a lift. And if we just move forward, this is their proposal, and this is what we are going to build. Historic England were very adamant that what was built here did not look like any other part of the hall. It was important that it was architecture of its time rather than trying to blend into its surroundings. So it went through a lot of permutations, and the reason why the pointy bit is all I can really describe it as, it is in order to let in natural light into this window here, which is the Cranmer window, the stained glass window in the hall, the Cranmer window. And if we just go back a slide, you'll see that when this was rebuilt in the 50s after the bomb dropped here, they had the same idea, because in order to get light there, they've had this light well, they built this light well here. So it's never been allowed to go all the way across. And that is why the architects discovered a different way of doing things, which passed muster. And I'll talk about this, the hall being more sustainable, accessible, and more flexible later on. But this is just to remind ourselves the vision. And this is where it all starts. This is in January. The builders are in now, and they're preparing the hall for the demolition of the link building here. The windows are boarded up to be protected, as is the garden and the walls here as well. And they're doing that on that scaffolding. Here is the anteroom as we remember it. The stained glass window there, the niches here. And part of the sustainability of the project is to reuse as much material as we can from the old building into the new building. This is in the anteroom looking the other way, and just to remind us of what was there. And this is where the soft strip starts taking place, which is always sad to see a building you love begin to slowly be dismantled. But these niches are here, and we've retained them all, and we hope to use 2 of them in the new buildings. And over here you can see the stained glass window from the anteroom, which has always been hinged. It was always hinged here. And you would notice that on the inscription, it's the Worshipful Company of Stationers. So this is pre-1930s when the amalgamation with the newspaper makers occurred. This is going to be reused and have an LED light behind it, and reused in the new garden reception area, which we'll come to in a bit. More of the demolition works. This is the stairs leading up to the library, into the top area, looking more sad now. This is a photograph from inside the courtroom to the anteroom. That gentleman there's a very important job of making sure that window doesn't fall in. This is before the demolition happens. These are our offices. This is William's office, but seen better days. And it's always, yeah, it doesn't look like that now. It's all been taken out now. Whilst they took the ceiling away, they discovered this label, Charles Letts. And Ruth Frendo, our archivist, did a lot of research into Charles Letts in our archives to find out why this might be here. The floor above here is the Great Hall. So some of these old beams date back to when it was built in 1674. So Ruth's, her research led to this. John Letts set up in 1796 a stationery business outside the Royal Exchange and was the first company to publish personal diaries, so the inventor of diaries. And a family member in 1880, Charles Letts, took over the business. And this is from our archives. This memorandum of agreement here from our archives shows the rights to publish the almanacs from the English Stock Company were bought by Charles Letts, and this is the agreement which shows that. And of course, Letts of London now is a very famous brand of diaries. And that's a very interesting, why his label is on one of the beams in the hall is still a bit of a mystery. Maybe he sponsored a beam, I don't know, or two, or maybe someone just put a sticker up there from some of his diaries. This is right at the top, those who visited the library. This is what the library now looks like. It's all been stripped out, and the parquet flooring has been taken up, and this will be reused in the link corridor, the parquet flooring. The steels here, this was rebuilt after the bombing damage after the war. So this steel is 1950s steel, not the strongest of steel when steel was in short supply. So this will be reinforced. And as you can see, to create a ceiling here, it has to be beneath these trusses. So a very clever design where between the trusses, the ceiling will be raised slightly, will give a better sense of height in the new meeting rooms on the 3rd floor here. More before the demolition comes down. This is a bit of signage showing don't go any further there. There's a great big hole, so in case you fall down. This is where the niches were, and you'll see this steel brace, which is now in place, holding up the back wall, which is the facade, which is being retained, and the other side of there is Amen Court, St. Paul's Cathedral land. And over here, now we have the scaffolding went up and the demolition begins, and it begins brick by brick from the top, very, very carefully. And you can see all the garden areas protected as well. They've progressed quite well here. They've nearly got it all finished, and it's looking nearly complete. And you can see just the back wall there, where the anteroom was, where the library was, or the library loos were there. And this is another photograph I took from the hall roof, just to show you the Tokefield Centre and the garden, what it looks like during this building site time. Anyway, now they've completely taken it down and they've started digging the foundations. This is where it gets quite interesting. So Dave here on his digger is doing some sterling work, carefully drawing it back, and then he discovers something down here. So it's worth saying that during this dig, there's always an archaeologist present doing what's called a watching brief, for looking out for any archaeology, and there's also somebody else present looking for World War II unexploded bombs as well. Anyway, we found some archaeology here. So these are the early parts of the dig. As it's been brushed away, there's a previous wall here, and then this is although it looks like concrete, this is actually probably a wall from the previous building that was here, which the company bought in 1606, known as Abergavenny House. So this is a medieval wall, but further investigation by the archaeologists, this is what it became and what it looks like. This wall, the medieval one, is actually probably reused stone after the Great Fire. They reused the stone as the foundation for the Great Hall. And there's some really interesting archaeology down here. You can see this dark area here, which is black soot, charcoal, probably from the Great Fire. And a brick specialist came round and identified the different eras of this brick. This here in the middle is actually 1950s cement slab when they rebuilt after the war. This is probably 18th, 19th century Victorian brickwork when there was a fireplace in this area. This we know is medieval, and this here is 17th century. The clerk told me this, William told me this, that this, after the Great Fire, a warehouse was built before the hall was built, because it was more important to find shelter for the new books the English Stock Company to sell to get the company back on its feet. So this building, this entranceway here, is probably predates the hall by a few years. Over here, this is quite interesting because this is through to the kitchens, and this, what looks like a bullet-ridden pillar, is actually 1950s brickwork, which is quite interesting to have it so near the 17th century brickwork. The archaeologist has dug down further beneath that wall to see what's below there, and this is a good photograph which shows you the various levels of time. Here we have, if you can see my cursor, this is probably the reused 1606 Abergavenny house stone to use as the foundations. Again, there's sort of soot here, probably from the Great Fire. And on top of here laid are the red bricks, 17th century bricks of the Great Hall, where that was put together. This shows some interesting finds. There's a clay pipe here. In a lot of archaeology, you'll find clay pipes. In fact, if you go for walks along the beach on the Thames, you will find a lot of these clay pipes. You will also find a lot of red roof tiles, which were from the Great Fire of London. It's worth doing. If you find a beach, go for a walk down there and you will find red roof tiles, which were thrown into the river, clearing up the city, and they've made their way slowly upstream or downstream. Right. Okay, now back to the future. The whole point of the build is to make the hall more sustainable, more accessible, and a more flexible space for the future. More sustainable because I'm glad to say that the City of London Planning Committee unanimously voted in agreement and gave permission for the application to install air cooling in the building throughout. So on the very hot evenings when we're having very hot dinners, 36 degrees outside, we will be a nice cool 22 degrees inside. The reason why this is sustainable is because it is 80% more efficient than our existing system. The new system will both heat and cool the courtroom, the stockroom, and the hall. Our existing system is relatively old, some old boilers, and the models that have been produced show that it will be 80% more efficient. It's more accessible because of there will be no steps to having to get up. You can come in here on the ground floor and the lift will take you to 5 different levels. It's ground floor, the first level where the hall is, the half a level higher where the courtroom is, another level higher where the loos will be, and right to the top on the 3rd floor where the new meeting space will be, and a new space also can be opened up and used for receptions. And more flexible because it enables us as a business to rent out the hall to more than one client at a time. So you could use this area and up here and have a lunch for say 80 people in here, whilst having a conference for 200 people in the Great Hall and the stockroom. And you can get to these places without having to go through other areas, which has always been a problem for us in the past. Here's a sneaky peek into the design of what it might look like. Please don't think that this is going to be red brick and this is going to be brown brick. The bricks will match. This is just part of the render. But this is just to give you a taste of what the finishes team are up to at the moment. You can see there was an idea at one stage to have the stained glass window on the window there looking in, and also there's a reception desk there. If we move a foot closer in, this has evolved over time. And now we're going to put the stained glass window here, backlit here. Another interesting thing on the design is the stairway. The reason why it's very thin metal stairs is because there's very little space in order to have anything else. And what the design team have looked at, and the finishes team, this is how can we make this more welcoming here, this part of the stairs. If you look over this picture here, by very simply just opening up the stairs a little bit, makes it a more welcoming staircase in which to go up. Little things like this. And if you look at the ceiling here, this is the old style ceiling, a new style ceiling with maybe a circle which reflects on the floor as well. And these are other areas just to show you here. Here's the floor plan of that. You can see where the lift will be here. You'll come into the entrance. There's the lift. There's a loo there. There's coats here, and then this leads to the link corridor, which leads to the next reception. These are ideas for the flooring, what the flooring might look like as well down here. The room above, what's called the charter room, will have 2 fantastic windows with great views overlooking there. I was going to show you some of the finishes to here, but I'm not now. That's going to be for another time because it's still work in progress, but it will look fantastic. This just shows you, these are sliding doors. So it could either be used as a badging area where you could come up the stairs, up the lift, be welcomed here, either go into the courtroom that way or down into the hall that way, or it could be used as a business room, a meeting room, or a place to dine as well. So that's the end of what I'm going to be talking about now. The plan is in 2022, the end of January, the builders will hand back the building. We will have until March the 1st to refit it out. And the plan is to open with the Shrove Tuesday John Norton service and cakes and ale. Seems a good time to open. And there'll be various opening events, celebrations, and opening of the hall, and open commercially for commercial business in April.
Okay, but we might try and do something very clever at the end and unmute everyone so they can give William a final huge clap. But we'll wait just a minute or two. I'm not going to delay you much longer, really. First of all, Giles, can we thank you? That was an absolutely marvelous presentation, I think, and they always are. All of the presentations you've given us, but I don't think people realise quite how much work you yourself have shouldered, not just in taking over as clerk, which is effectively happening at this very minute, but also with regard to the hall development. It has been unbelievable, and we're greatly indebted to you. And all of the things that William said about you, absolutely, I think we'd all cheer, especially those of us who've been working closely with you. It's something like, I don't know how many years ago now, I chaired the Hall and Heritage Committee, and it was there really that the beginnings of this notion of something, a development like this would happen, and it's just taken a while to get there, but it's very exciting. And as William said very clearly in his comments earlier on, we must always look forward, and this is a wonderful example of how we're doing that. So Giles, thank you very much. That was great. I think it just remains for me to say that we all look forward to seeing William. He may sometimes feel he's had enough of stationers for a bit and he'll come back to just certain things. I don't know, he may be back more often, but we certainly look forward to seeing him as often as he can get to London and get off his horse and all those other things that he'll want to be doing. William, we've had a marvelous opportunity to say thank you to you. We look forward to seeing you soon. There'll be other opportunities as well for different groups to say farewell to you. But it's farewell and also happy sailing in the next bit. I'd rather change my images. Can't sail much on a horse. But anyway, there we go. Thank you, William. And Lucy, if you can contrive to unmute us all, we can all cheer and clap at the same time.
Yay.